So, you guys have heard of this new show, right? AJ and the Queen? Well, I need to talk about it, so here I am. This is going to be a mostly spoiler-free review, and if I do mention spoilers, don't worry, I will be putting timestamps to skip to if you still plan on watching the show. I honestly didn't even know the show was a thing until literally the day it aired. It showed up in my Netflix queue, and its trailer was set on autoplay, and I watched it. I immediately wanted to check it out. It looked fun. AJ and the Queen has a concept that should be an easy sell. Not only is it a road trip movie, which I love, but it's also about drag queens, a culture that I don't know a lot about, but I think is really interesting. But this show was just not it. Not to say that the show is bad. It's not the worst show I've seen. I have no issues with it existing. In fact, I'd say it's totally savable. A few tweaks in character, a few smoothing over of some of the world building and dialogue, and maybe removing some of the subplots, and I would have loved it. The show has a pretty strong skeleton, it's just the rest of it that I have a problem with. And not to say that I didn't enjoy it, by the time it got to the last episode, it seemed to have gotten its legs, but it shouldn't have taken 10 episodes for it to get there. Now, the plot of AJ and the Queen is pretty simple. You've got those two characters who are both going through difficult situations. There's AJ, played by Izzy G, a young girl whose mother is a drug-addicted prostitute and has abandoned her. Then you have Robert, played by RuPaul, a drag queen who dreams of opening up his own drag club, but his boyfriend scams him out of the $100,000 that he saved up. What ends up happening is Robert is taken off for a drag tour, and AJ tags along for the ride because she needs to go to Texas to live with her grandfather. Like, she literally sneaks onto his RV. Now, for any other show, this would be enough. You have those two characters who are very different, who are both going through something really traumatic and difficult. Plus, they also have the drag shows, which add another layer of fun. Where the plot trips itself up is the villains. Now, for some reason, I do not understand whatsoever both Robert's boyfriend and his accomplice, Lady Danger or Lady Eye Patch or whatever the hell her name is, decide to follow the two of them across on the tour. Why? Because Robert chose to go to the police when he discovered the scam and now they want to kill him for it. I don't understand this. I mean, I understand why they would want him dead, but why follow him? Why would people who I assume are pretty used to scamming go after the people who they scammed? Doesn't this open them up for just more police investigation? I mean, in general, I think most scammers you disappear after you scam the person. Not only that, but the villains, like, in general, like, oh yeah. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'll get into acting and character in a bit, but wow. The next weird subplot they have, and this is kind of going into spoiler territory, so if you want to avoid, skip to this timestamp, involves Robert's ex-boyfriend Hector Hernandez or whatever the hell his name is. He's coming to the realization that he may be, in fact, into men. Yeah, on the other side of this, they have Robert finding out more stuff about him, like the fact that he wouldn't kiss one of the other queens he scammed. Are they trying to get me to root for the two of them to be together? Worst part is, it actually almost works. Like, there were parts where I was like, oh my god, that's so sweet. But then I was like, wait, he just scammed him out of $100,000. Why am I rooting for them? But not only that, but the fact that, like, you have a villain, there's only one redeeming quality is the fact that he's struggling with whether or not they're into the same sex. I mean, try again. I need something more than that, especially in 2020. Or maybe I'm way off. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Not only that, but using someone's sexuality as a way to gain sympathy is just so tiring at this point. So yeah, plot. You could have removed the whole villain thing and I probably would have liked it a lot better. I'm going to be getting into characters more in a bit, but I think you had enough emotional turmoil between these two people that you didn't need any more than that. I'm down for a show about a drag queen working on overcoming his insecurity and a kid learning to trust adults again after they've both been betrayed by people who are supposed to love and take care of them. You've got enough conflict right there. You don't need any more. Emotional turmoil is severely underrated. Now, if I had to explain the one thing that I had an issue with this show, it's just that it feels off, and I think it's the tone. AJ and the Queen definitely feels like a dramedy, a cross between a drama and a comedy, and dramedy is one of the hardest tones to master. Dramedy needs to be serious, but light, if that makes sense. Something like Perks of Being a Wallflower, which has light, sweet moments about falling in love and being a teenager, but also has moments of seriousness, of struggle with mental illness and dealing with childhood trauma. Or if you want a TV show example, Fleabag, which is about a woman who is struggling with the death of someone close to her, and she deals with it in comedic, totally crazy ways, and it's funny. Even though you know this character is going through something big, it still feels light enough that you can laugh at it. Dramedy is one of my favorite genres because I think it's the one that always reflects life the best. It has a lot of really sad moments, but also has a lot of funny moments. It's a roller coaster of emotion. But AJ and the Queen doesn't have this roller coaster, and when it does, it goes too far in either direction, or it doesn't go far enough. It just loses the balance of comedy and drama. It has these incredibly emotionally draining moments, but they often feel stiff, unnatural, and when it comes to comedy, they go way too far. They just feel cartoonish and like they're not real life. Like, take the villains, for example. I think they're supposed to be, like, super threatening, but they're just written so cartoonishly, and I cannot take them seriously. It just feels wrong. Another thing that lends its way to tone is the music and the narration. The music often feels like it's a rip straight from YouTube Music Library, and they just typed in whatever emotion the character was feeling, and the first one that showed up was just shoved in there. And the narration. Oh my god, the narration. It's so weird. Every single episode starts with AJ narrating something for the show and ends with the same narration. Not only does it just feel weird, but it's usually, not always, but usually only at the start and beginning of the episodes. It's kind of weird that I have this nitpick, but it turns out just the day before I started watching the show, I had a writing teacher actually tell me to never just put narration at the beginning or at the end of a piece. It should always be scattered throughout, and I did not realize how much I agreed with him until I watched the show. I mean, it just... Also, the narration almost has nothing to do with the actual story. It feels like it's just trying to sound smart when actually it just sounds really stupid. Like, it's just weird, okay? I don't know. Anyway, let's get into acting, because none of the actors in this show are good enough to carry it. Although, in all fairness, I don't just blame the actors, I also blame the writing. The dialogue is often stiff and full of exposition, which doesn't translate to good acting. I mean, like, just the actors in general just feel, like, really stiff. Like, any show of emotion just feels really either comedic or stiff. Like, there's very little to say here. The closest you get to an actor that I really liked was AJ's, Izzy G, who was pretty good for a child actress. I think maybe the writing held her back a bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, she was good, but her as a character was pretty awful. I didn't even start liking her until the 4th episode, and considering the fact that she's one half of the main duo, that's pretty bad. She does get better as time goes on, but there's very little done to redeem some of her more bratty moments in the first few episodes. Like, this wouldn't have been hard to do, but somehow, I don't know, the writers messed this up and created this character who's really hard to like. And RuPaul. Now, I don't know much about RuPaul. I'm not that familiar with his work to really have an opinion on him, but I did watch a few of his interviews online when watching the script because I had a theory. And I was kind of proven right. He and Robert feel like exactly the same person, and I don't mean this in a good way. I mean, I think he's gotten so used to playing this character in television and other forms of media that he just brought it to this role. So a lot of the display of emotion, not all, but a lot, just feels really stiff and like it's not all there. He doesn't feel like he's acting. It feels like he's holding himself back a bit. And while I do understand the want to hire actual drag queens to play drag queens, you get the same feeling from every single other drag queen character, that they're so used to playing these people on stage that they don't feel like real people in real life. None of these characters feel actually real and three-dimensional. They feel like stage people. And finally, the villains. Oh my god, the freaking villains. Every single time these people popped up on screen, I wanted to bang my head against the wall. Now, I've already talked a bit about Robert's ex, but then there's his partner, Lady Danger. We've already discussed how, like, it makes absolutely no sense why these two people are following them. But both of those villains are just absurd. They're stricken with the same issue that the comedy is, where the writing just takes them to being way too far, and they're just not, like, they're just pathetic and just written really comically, and they feel almost like cartoon villains. Like, it's supposed to be funny, I get it. This is what our main characters are afraid of. Why? They're pathetic. But the actors are just not able to ground those villains into anything real, especially when the storyline I mentioned around Robert's ex comes up. They feel so pathetic and ridiculous and over the top, I can't take them seriously, even when it comes to really scary moments, because they're such freaking idiots. They're just not very grounded and add very little value to the story. And I think this really just comes down to the fact that the actors just aren't talented enough to ground these characters. I mean, take something like Jane the Virgin. Jane the Virgin is an over-the-top show with over-the-top characters, but the actors are good enough that they are able to ground these characters into feeling like real people. I mean, take Jane, the main character. In any other actor's hands, this character would have been over the top and absurd, but Gina Rodriguez has taken this character and grounded her. She feels like a real person, even though she's put in these completely over the top situations and surrounded by complete over the top characters. Anyway, that's what I have to say about AJ and the Queen. I wouldn't call it a complete waste of anyone's time, as it does have its moments. I'm curious to see what the second season will bring, if there is a second season. Netflix doesn't release its online stats, so I don't really know how well it's done, but the end of the season really points to the fact that the creators are really hoping for a season 2. Anyway, so, I mean, if you want to watch it, it has its moments. I mean, 6 out of 10, that's what I would give it. Anyway, that's what I have to say about AJ and the Queen. I just kind of wanted to make this review. So if you're curious to see any more of these videos, I might make more in the future. Actually, I probably will. But because there's actually a lot of other shows that I want to talk about that came out recently. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna go. See you later. Bye. I'm gonna go eat something. Woo!